Very good morning. Myself, Dr. BIJU from Department of Education, Central University of Tamil Nadu. I'm so happy to be the part of spoken tutorial faculty development program on teaching learning process through online, organized by MV Muthiah Government Arts College for Women. I would like to present before you regarding the innovative methodologies of teaching and learning. So I have taken up a presentation which talks about design for innovative learning. Now, what is innovation basically? Because we know that we are going through the pandemic situation where we almost all of us are going for online teaching learning, and we know that most of us are not familiar with the designs with which we can go for online. I agree that almost all of us are masters in our teaching learning in the face to face way in our classroom. Even some of us may be trying to bring innovations in our day to day teaching learning process. So, what is innovation basically? Innovation in education, it is a deviation from the standard practice that achieves greater learning outcome for students than the standard practice given equal amount of time and resources. So basically, innovation is something new. Whatever we are following right now. We know that any teaching learning process will be based on the learning outcome that we decide, or I can say that the learning objectives. At the graduate level, we know that each learning process need to be marked with the learning outcome or learning objective. Even UGC has come out with the learning outcome profiles. Or some of you may be able to think about the graduate attributes. So our intention in any teaching learning process to achieve these learning outcome, and we will be thinking in what way we can achieve, what is the best way to achieve in an easiest way. So most of the time we have to think about the learners, their profile, their previous experiences, their minimum level of performance. So there are different parameters. So innovation is nothing but we think about something new which allows you to achieve your learning outcome in a easiest way. And Rogers in 1983, an innovation is an idea, practice, or object that is perceived as new by an individual or another unit of adoption. So it may be something new. When we talk about something new, it need not be something new alone. It can be an adoption. Wherever we come across some of the best practices, I can adopt it. So innovation need not be something new whichever were not existing. It can be something existing and use it in a better way, suiting to the learning outcome, the learning needs of our learners. Now, innovations in learning solve problems and add values. That's what we will be thinking about. The innovations in learning solve problems and add value. So why are we looking for innovation? We are looking for innovation because we know that it adds. So when we talk about innovation, yes, we'll be focusing on more problem solving and add values. So it provides a fresh solution or remove traditional barriers to existing articulated challenges in teaching and learning. So we know what are the different challenges we are facing in every day-to-day life, every day-to-day classroom teaching learning. So most of us are very good in handling or resolving the problems that is happening in our day-to-day classrooms, whereas when it comes to online, are we able to solve that? So we may have to think about a design where we can address the challenges what our students are facing while coming to online teaching learning. Another point is identify a previously undetected need or barrier, then enhance the teaching and learning process with a novel situation. So always look into, and most of us know that we can assume the forthcoming problems or forthcoming challenges, whereas there may be so many other factors which becomes undetected. So when we into the situation, when we practice it, then we'll come to know that yes, we'll find out one or the other. So basically, any innovative teaching learning method focuses on previously undetected need or barrier. And another is now, can we introduce new possibilities? So how will we introduce new possibilities to enhance the teaching and learning process? Those who are listening me, you know that maybe some of us might be told I'm against online teaching learning because the vitality of teaching learning process is getting curbed. Now when it came to a lockdown situation because of a pandemic, now slowly we were started thinking of what would be the alternative. Even some of us were using the Facebook page or WhatsApp account or Twitter or something or the Google Classroom, something or the other. We were using as a supplement to our classroom teaching learning process. Whereas now, when the actual classroom teaching learning process is being shut down, now we started thinking of what would be the alternative. So we may have to completely depend upon either this app based or technology based education. Now in that, what alternatives we can, what possibilities we can think about, rather making use of, maybe I can say, I know some of our teachers are very good in Google Classroom. They upload the material and share it to the students go through that, and they may post their doubts. So there is a traditional way of using Google Classroom. There is a traditional way of using maybe Edmodo, or there is a traditional way of using Canvas, or there is a traditional way of using Moodle platform that everyone can. But my question would be, what new possibilities we can think about? Now, some of the teachers started using the podcast as the tool, maybe the language teachers. So what new possibilities would be leading you to an innovative teaching methodology? Now there are 5 phase innovation process. Let us look into that. The first one stimulates innovation to improve learning outcomes. Our teaching learning innovations, when we are talking about, it should stimulate innovations to improve learning outcomes. For example, I can think about maybe a discussion about a particular topic as a learning outcome in my teaching learning process in the real classroom. When it comes to maybe an online platform, can I think about maybe a critical appreciation, maybe a critical analysis, or a collaborative discussion which was not possible in a day-to-day classroom, but on the online platform there is more scope. Posting it for the public and collecting the reflections from the public and compiling it is a scope of improving the learning outcome. Another phase is enable potential adopters to select innovation appropriate to their context and need. So here the designer, the teachers need to think about What is the context in which I'm designing a particular course? What is the need of this particular learning experience? Some of us may use, for example, Kahoot is a famous quiz app most of you may be using. Now I have to think about what is the need of using that. Can I use a worksheet? Can I use maybe a Sudoku? Can I use maybe an H5P interactive assessment? So think about what is the need, in which context I'm using, that would become an innovation. The third phase ensures that the innovation is implemented with the fidelity to its essential elements and with adaptations to enhance its effectiveness in the given context. We need to implement the learning design or teaching learning design with its essential elements. We cannot give away with the essential elements of teaching learning. For example, what is the essential, one of the essential feature of teaching learning is interaction. Right now I am recording a video, sharing it with you, and you are not allowed to ask, or you don't have an opportunity to ask the real time questions with me. So when we go for a recorded or a broadcasting mode of online education, we know that there are challenges of the essential elements. So let us focus on the essential elements of teaching learning so that it enhances its effectiveness in the context. Fourth point is facilitates the scaling of innovation through implementation in multiple avenues. We know that there are facilities of innovation that can be used in our classroom. Now, when it comes to a online, we know that it can be scaled up. It can be reached to multiple. It can be reached to n number of learners. When it comes to a classroom, I was addressing maybe a number of 45 students, whereas when it comes to maybe a technology integrated teaching learning design, we know that even I can go maybe live so that thousands of people can watch me or listen me. And it provides a system for monitoring the effects of the innovation and its scaling, implementing changes as necessary. So these are all the 5 phase innovation process you can think about. Now, once it's said about the innovation, can we think about the framework for innovations in learning? The principles of learning for content is the content need to be explicit or comprehensive. When I address a particular content in my classroom, I have a restriction. I have the time restriction, I have the resource restriction, so that I may not be able to go comprehensive. When it comes to an online, web-based or technology-enabled, I believe that we can go for an explicit knowledge, cumulative knowledge. In the classroom, I may be able to provide bits and parts of a knowledge, whereas I can lead the construction of knowledge in step-by-step procedure so that the learner can have a cumulative knowledge. Another is the fluency. The fluency can be made sure through the accurate logical sequencing of the content. Once I present the content, maybe in a course design, if I present the content, first one maybe to introduce the particular content, I may use a video, then I may go for a discussion, then I may go for an explanation. So this sequencing can be logical and with respect to the learning outcomes so that we can make sure that there is a fluency. And the concept formation and acquired relevance, these two also can be take care. These are all some of the challenges which we were facing in our day-to-day classrooms, and most of the time either we forget or ignore these kind of principles for learning the content. And principles of learning for instruction is the exercise, feedback, pacing, reflection. How many of our teachers are able to provide enough exercise in our classroom? We have, yes, the time constraint, we have the resource constraint, and sometimes even I have heard that the teachers are telling that I have a constraint about the exercises itself. I don't have the scope for exercise. But when we think about the innovation, please look into, can we bring the innovation in our exercise so that our instruction become meaningful. Another one is the feedback. What is a feedback? Feeding back. It is nothing but taking the input from whatever activity is happening. Take some input and give it back. For example, when a student is presenting maybe a project report, I can find out the content is not appropriate. So I may be giving a feedback, appreciating the effort that the student put to complete the project and prepare a presentation. Your effort is good, but I feel your content is not appropriate. Don't stop there. If you look for a meaningful instruction, the third component, you give the suggestions for improvement. When you give suggestions for improvement or when you suggest the remedies, please make sure that there is an appropriate follow-up. Another point is the pacing of the instruction. Most of us are happy if I have a course which is running self-paced mode. According to my speed, I can go ahead in the course. But in a day-to-day classroom, we know that we cater the need of the average. We may have the gifted learners, we may have the slow learners. Most of the time, we compromise. But when it comes to a learning design, we know that we can make it self-paced, remembering the principles of programmed learning. A programmed learning is a principle which talks about we can program the learning such a way that you provide the content in simple steps. In small units you provide, then you provide a scope for checking. Don't worry about the term programmed instruction or programmed learning. Some of you might have experienced, maybe undertaken a distance education program, correspondence education program, where you know the material, though there will be a unit spreading to 30 pages, we know that the unit would be designed such a way that after maybe one page, there will be a self-check. Let us check. So these checking points make sure that I have already achieved the content before that. That gives me a motivation to move forward. So let us think about an innovative design in terms of pacing and providing enough opportunity to reflect. Then principles of learning for personalization. What is that? This is another set of principles which we need to take care even in a day-to-day classroom. Readiness. How would we make sure my learners are ready to learn? It's a kind of personalization. I may be ready, whereas my colleague or my friend may not be ready. There is a mental readiness, physical readiness, even I can say the sociological readiness. During this time when I'm offering my class online, I request my students to be online, maybe in a Google Meet or a Zoom. I ask them, yes, you need to be logging in at around 10 o'clock. The class will go 40 minutes or 1 hour. I have to think about whether they'll be ready mentally, physically. Third, yes, I am sitting at home, my home environment. Reciprocity transferability, freedom. So all these components are adding to the principles of learning for personalization, and I hope most of you agree that the learning should become personalized. So now let us look into the designs for innovations in learning. Keeping all the principles in our mind, I suggest that let us focus into the process as well as the product. The race is on now. We know that as almost all of us have started designing the teaching learning. Now I hope everyone try to bring some difference in my design. Suppose I design a learning material, for example a PowerPoint. Next time I'll feel that I should improve. So there is always a self urge among the educators to think about what changes I can bring. So the race is on. Now let us look into the paradigms, because we need to be maybe one step ahead. So what are the learning paradigms we are talking about? There are number of paradigms into learning. Earlier we were having the face to face. Now we say that e-learning, electronic based learning maybe would be better. Now slowly when we make the education electronic based, now we know that we go with blended learning. We know that electronic learning, 100% electronic learning may not be possible in a social situation like India. So we were suggesting, we were advocating better to go for blended learning, where we blend the e platforms as well as the face-to-face learning. Now, the effectiveness of that particular learning was depending upon the quality of blending. It's not that everything can go as a blended mode. But yes, the researchers suggest that blended learning is effective. Don't forget, it depends on the quality of blending. Now slowly we started about thinking about, yes, everybody is gadget oriented, or every student have the access towards the gadgets like laptop, tablet or mobile phone. Slowly we were thinking about, why can't we think about m learning, mobile learning? Even I think during these lockdown periods we were trying to transfer the content, transfer the courses into the mobile, so that it is a simple gadget where the students can easily access. So we were trying to have an m learning. But yes, the other side, the effectiveness of your m learning depends on how best, how rigorous, how meticulous your plan, how meticulous your design of learning. Otherwise the mobile learning would be seen as just some content is transferred to the mobile, I explore that mobile content. Then slowly we talked about flipped learning. Then we thought about, okay, why can't we have a learning management system which takes care of the entire learning process? There we were talking about the access and universality. So we came with some designs called MOOC, massive online open course. And ultimately our intention is for ubiquitous learning. Learning happens anywhere, every time. So let us look into e-learning. So what is e-learning? E-learning is the learning that is happening through electronic mode. We have online education, student blogs are there, virtual reality is possible right now. We have simulators, online support, digital collaboration using maybe the Jamboard or interactive whiteboards, web learning, online testing is possible, e-books are available, online meetings are possible, virtual classrooms are now possible. So e-learning is nothing but the learning that is happening with an electronic platform. We may call it as a web-based learning, internet-based learning. There are number of synonyms what we use regarding e-learning. Another is the mobile learning. So mobile learning is basically depending upon the mobile gadget. Now, to that gadget, we design our content. Maybe using Web 1.0, Web 2.0, Web 3.0. There are a number of generations we are talking about, the kind of content, the kind of material, whether it is static material, whether it is interactive material, the kind of material we are using, the kind of platform we are using. So putting all these together, we try to provide a learning opportunity through mobile, that is mobile learning. And blended learning, as I was mentioning, teacher leads a small group instruction, then the group interact among them, then the individual build upon that, then the individual personalize the learning. So it is like blending of small group collaboration, individual online learning. So even most of you may be familiar with blended learning. Another is the flipped learning. So in a traditional classroom, when the students comes to the classroom, they learn. The learning happens in the classroom, and the application or the higher level of analysis or verification of the learning happens at the home as a homework activities. Now, can we think of tilting it? So what happened in a flipped learning design, the lecturing can happen even online or even offline. The whatever lecture materials, lecture resources can be shared to the students. That can happen even at home. They prepare their learning and comes to the classroom for higher level of analysis and verifications. So tilting the learning that is happening in the classroom and at the home. So this is what flipped learning. And what are the benefits of flipped learning or flipped classroom? Efficient and reusable. The when I prepare some materials, collect resources, compile all these can be reused. Maybe when we talk about technology integrated learning, we know that there is something called reusable learning objective, RLO, reusable learning objects. So whatever material we are preparing, whatever different kinds of resources that we are compiling, all these can be reused. And student controlled learning, because that is a self-paced, student can take their own time to learn because they are learning at home. And cost-effective implementation, content representation, engagement-based learning. They prepare their learning, they involved in their learning, they frame their learning, come to the classroom, and they engage by their own to to clarify the learning and the doubts. So these are some of the benefits of maybe flipped classroom. And the great advantage, now we can think about learning anytime, anywhere, and any device, which is nothing but the ubiquitous learning. So it may not depend upon a particular gadget, it may not depend upon a particular platform. Learning, that is where sometimes we go with the cloud platforms, so that maybe like a Google Classroom, Moodle based classrooms, etc., where at any time whenever they feel to access the content and prepare the learning, that is possible. Anywhere they can access it, and any device. Now maybe I'll take you through another concept of learning called open education. Learn anything, learn anytime, learn anywhere for free. Maybe edX, Coursera, Udemy, like these kind of platforms, they provide number of MOOCs, massive online open courses. They are open courses, anybody can do it. But sometimes what happen, most of us are worried about the certification. Now there are free certifications, as well as there are certifications which are paid. So it's up to us, the beneficiaries, to think about for what purpose, what kind of course I'll be taking. Massive open online courses. There are Class Central, edX, Udacity, Coursera, Future Learn. I hope maybe during this pandemic, most of you might be uh, exploring the different MOOCs providers so that you were able to learn yourself. And coming to LMS, where you systemize systematize your learning teaching learning process. The teacher role is there, the learner role is there, and the most of the time when you depend upon technology, most of us complain that I need to sacrifice my assessment. So LMS is a platform which support you to manage your teaching learning process. And now, keeping all these in our mind, let us look into how can we prepare ourselves. There are, or I started with a point that designs for innovation. So let us think about, maybe quickly go through some of the instructional design model which support you for maximizing the learning. First, maybe the model is a D model, Assure model, Gagney's 9 events instructional model. So don't worry about these terms. Maybe I'll explain the simplest and the basic model called a D model. Anyone who is preparing for teaching methodology or going to select a teaching method, follow 5 steps. The first one, you start with the analysis of the content, analysis of the learner, analysis of the context, and the analysis of the task based upon maybe the syllabus. Based upon your curriculum, you analyze the syllabus, you analyze the content, also you analyze who are my beneficiaries, what are the psychological, maybe physical, as well as the sociological aspects, then what kind of task they'll be able to do. So this kind of analysis you can do. Once you look into the analysis, that gives you a framework to go for the design of your teaching learning. So in the design of teaching learning, you think about the content. Most of the time I have seen the designers, they take the content as such from the textbook. No, it's not transferring the textbook content into another platform. We design the content in a more presentable, participatory mode so that there is more involvement of the learner. Then slowly you think about what kind of learning outcomes I would like to achieve while using this particular content, and kind of activities and kind of assessment that I can use. So you go to a design mode. Then once you fix the design, maybe even I can suggest you can discuss this design among your colleagues so that some others can suggest you, so that your design would be more robust. So based on the design, you develop the content using the multiple representation of the content, video content, audio content, interactive content. So using the different kinds of content, you develop the material, then implement. For implementing, you make sure what platform would be better, whether it is a Google based or Edmodo or Canvas. There are a number of platforms through which you can implement. So try to implement before finalizing. Try to implement, go for a test dose, maybe a one class. Then you evaluate it, you review it, how exactly it can go ahead, so that your model will become more robust and meaningful. And similarly, we have the Assure model: analyze the learner, state objective, select media and material, utilize media and material, require learner participation, and evaluate and revise. So what is futuristic? When you look into the teaching methodologies, the futuristic talks about robot assistants. Even some of the colleges, schools, they already started about integrating robots into teaching learning. Artificial intelligence, right? Alexa, bring. Or maybe even people are talking about the nano chips which can be embossed in your brain, and you just talk to the nano chip to get all the detail about whatever knowledge you are talking about. Chatbot, blockchain, machine learning, deep learning, cloud computing, cyber security, cryptocurrency, big data. These are all some of the new concepts or new opportunities technocrats are talking about to integrate in our teaching learning process. So I hope I have given a broad arena of how exactly we can think about the innovative teaching methodologies. It's not a comprehensive or exclusive one. I know that. I just presented some of my ideas of how can we go ahead for innovating, because it's purely subjective. How do we go ahead with innovation depending upon your content, your expertise in the teaching, as well as your expertise in the technology, and your knowledge about the learners. So ultimately, whatever teaching methodology you're talking about, our intention is to improve the teaching learning and increase the output. So I hope you have enjoyed the presentation, and maybe you can take up the discussions on whatever I have discussed. So I'm so thankful to hear me, maybe through whatever platform you are hearing. Thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity to present some of my ideas. I wish all the best, and safe, stay back home, and let us prevent and uh, maybe fight against corona and come to the normalcy soon. Thank you. Thanks a lot.